And I got something from her about advising stuff. It's good. It'll take time. Sometimes the goal is just really slow. You gotta I'm a little tired. It's gonna wake me up. I talked to Molly about CAC, and she said she would suggest email can ask me. Who's the person that you got this from? It's okay. So my advisor told me that to, and if underclassmen go at a certain time, and upperclassmen go at a certain time. Which one do I do?
I don't have any classes.
You're an upperclassman. Underclassmen. How did you start doing it? Because I need like underclassmen like.
And Wednesday is advising.
I need help. No. I think I'm okay. Thanks, doctor. She reminded me that I took her.
When I grow up, they'll give these students to
And also I
advise.
just saw me in the spring. I was not taking
When they think that I have something to share with them.
I'm not doing teaching. Well, no. I'm graduating. Like, the graduate stuff, the next hour. But I'll give you this one sort of platform. I know sciences. I know physical.
And then do spring.
I went to other schools too.
Yeah.
Just a little.
Yeah, I teach at the Atlas Graduate School over in Richfield. And I teach here. I try not to teach too many places. So right now,
This is my.
I used to teach at Rasmussen.
Are you graduating early or you?
This isn't for J.
College
This
and
isn't for J.
MSU.
So I can disregard.
I didn't like those so much.
No, you take that, it's the same one.
I enjoyed
I
it.
just remember that with the rest of my.
And then I've taken over.
Show up.
I'm technically a favorite.
Huh?
You do the reading? I don't know. 5/8, once a 9/12.
I didn't hear the.
Oh,
you
you read this interview.
I'm sure you've read it already.
That's why.
You probably already
Yeah.
read it. Right, like 16 times already. So
Help me tonight.
It's of course it is.
It was just so like, did you do the reading?
I do that.
she already knew the answer. She was
You know what?
in front of her out,
Me about
in
this.
front of the whole class.
It literally
So we'll get started. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your loving kindness towards us. Even though we did not deserve all that you've done for us, we thank you for loving us and caring for us and providing for us. And Lord, we thank you for the learning opportunities that you've provided us, Lord. We know that this is a luxury for some folks, but we thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for the opportunity to learn more about you and become closer with you in all of your creations. And Lord, we thank you for these opportunities and these blessings. In Jesus' name, amen. So many of you have read the letter from a Birmingham jail on many occasions or several occasions. Hopefully they shared that with you in high school. Did anyone read it in high school? Okay, cool. Why would I try to share that with you in this particular class, and given our context that we've kind of been talking about in terms of educational equity, discovering things about other people, discovering things about ourselves. Why might I want to share that with you? I used to get intimidated by your silence, but I don't anymore. I mean, I know that means that you really like me. So why? What's why would I share this? Or what were some of the things that when you read through it, some of the things that stood out for you as to why it's applicable to this particular class?
I will admit, I didn't read this for today, but from reading in the past, there's a section that stands out to me, where he's talking about how, as Christians, we should, he thinks that the church, he was saying the church at the time was being a thermometer for culture and for how culture was, or how the, it was reflecting what was happening. But he wanted the church to kind of wake up and become a thermostat, where they're reflecting what's actually happening in the culture, not just
Yeah.
and I think that as teachers or anyone, that's something that should be in the forefront of our minds. And as Christians, just that we should be working to shape culture and shape views on race or anything, instead of just saying, well, this is what's happening and it sucks, but we're just going to deal with it.
Yeah, and so again, if we don't understand where Dr. King is coming from, what he's birthed out of, why would he demand, why would he suggest, what are the motivators for him to say that we shouldn't be a thermometer, we should be a thermostat? Why would he have that the gumption to say that, and the power behind it to really want to make that happen? Who was Dr. King? Who was Reverend Dr. King? Who was he? He was a pastor. He was a civil rights activist. He was a father, a husband, a revolutionary, and he was a Baptist black preacher. That's the one that's right in front of your nose. Now, when we think about all of the stuff around the institution of slavery and the fight for human dignity and human rights, where did those things come from? Did society say we just want to do better? You know, they said we just want to do better, so let's just treat people better. Did society just say that on its own? No, they didn't say that on their own. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. What do you know about that song? Yes, sir.
Written by a former slave captain.
Yeah, slave ship. So he's running the slave ship, the whole thing, and then he gets this epiphany. Boom! He has this encounter with God. He says, "Oh my goodness, what am I doing? I got to do something different." Did the capitalist system that was importing people, do they want to free people? No, it's not in their best interest to do so, because I lose what? Money. William Wilberforce stood before Parliament in England and said what? because of my religious conviction. What we are doing is morally wrong. He was a minister. And he went before the abolitionist movement was based out of what? The church. These were people who were sitting back saying, oh, well, this is too bad. So Dr. King sees these things happening, and he's like, what's wrong with you guys? We have never been thermometers. We've always been thermostats. We call people to the truth about our reconciliation, about our stuff, right? So now there's some other folks who really taken it on and became, use the truth to separate people. But for the most part, Christians, in the large part of what we're doing, particularly when it doesn't get tainted by capitalism, like what happened with Native Americans, right? So we expanded because God told us to, but God never said that. We just said it's our God right to do so, right? So Dr. King was very much like, we don't need to be thermometers, we need to be thermostats, right? He's a master at metaphors. I mean, the blank check thing, like, whoa, you wrote me a bad check. What happens with bounced checks? You got to pay a fee to, so he used lots of great metaphors. So as a black man, as a black Christian, where did his liberation come from? It came from the church's activities. It didn't come just from civil morality. It came from the church's activities in the world. Where are we now? Are we thermometers? Or are we thermostats? What do you think? What do you do? The state of let's start with the state of the church, right? Is it responding to, or is it making things happen? What do you think?
Responding to.
What's that?
Responding.
It's responding to. And what evidence do you have, or what ideas are you having that make you say that?
Well, I think that we're not initiating any type of change. I feel like the church is just sitting there and taking their own stances on whatever is happening in world perspective, from the world's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
We're just sitting and waiting for something to happen, and we take a stance on it, and then we don't do anything about it.
Okay, so we wait for something to happen. Something does happen, we take a stance on it, and then we sit down, right? Yes.
I think the American church is a thermometer, but the world church is a thermostat. In the way that we sit back, like what Mitch was saying, like going along with that, but then the world church where you see people acting and doing stuff in different countries around the world, and there's action being taken against moral wrong outside of the U.S.
Yeah.
I see it.
Yeah. What else? How do other folks see? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was gonna say, offer, I don't know, kind of like having two different views. I'll say like for the Western church, like a lot of it, they don't really talk about like real world issues. It's more like crisis coming and I mean whatever else, you know what I mean? And like things that basically like most Christians already kind of know, but they don't really address things that like that's actually really going on as to why we should care about Christ, and like why we should care about what's going on, why we should care about trying to be followers of Christ. They don't talk about like why should we care. They just talk about like we should know that this is happening. And like I don't know, another like kind of view I also see like besides Western church, like Western churches, I kind of see like when I go to like my kind of home church and kind of like we talk about like real issues. Not all the time, but like we do talk about like the black movement, we do talk about like racism, we do talk about like things that's going on, we do talk about like inequality and you know what I mean, like with women and with races and things like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, I have to say, even in my own church, love my church, love really big on theology and great stuff. But I about fell under the pew when my pastor started talking about Black Lives Matter. I was like, wow, like this is, I mean, then he talks about those things like outside of the pulpit, but like the pulpit is where the word comes from and where, you know, in the word. But when you start talking about that stuff, I was like, whoa. And he starts talking from the pulpit about systemic things that we should be doing for the poor and why people are and so forth. And I was like, go ahead, Pastor, go ahead. And the funny thing is when you hear your pastor talk about it and then you do something about it, right? And so, you know, it's just been interesting to see us really giving money to the Dorothy Day Center, right? Sending volunteers down to do this or the other thing, really trying to engage. Because was this a happy letter that Dr. King wrote? No, it wasn't a happy letter, right? What was he responding to?
Like pastors who are criticizing his civil rights movement.
Yeah. So, and what was their beef with Dr. King in terms of the movement? Did they disagree that this was a bad movement to have? No, they didn't disagree. They said this is a great movement to have. But what was their biggest complaint? Yes, sir. That the civil disobedience was wrong. Okay. What else?
Unwise and untimely.
Untimely. Now, I want you to ask your parents, was it a good time, mom and dad, was it a good time for me to be born? Anybody learn how to ride a bike? Right? Did you start with training wheels? When was the perfect time for you to take off the training wheels? Was there a perfect time? No. Anybody ever try, doing ballroom dancing? Right? Yeah. When is the perfect time to start learning how to do ballroom dancing? Anybody ever passed a note to a cute boy or a cute girl and like, when was the right time to do it? So what these pastors are saying is that Dr. King, Rome wasn't built in a day. Have you heard people say things like that? What are they saying? When they say Rome wasn't built in a day. What do they mean?
That greatness isn't achieved in just like right away.
Greatness isn't achieved in right away. Yes.
Oh, yeah, there's a process.
There's a process. You have to work through the process. Yeah.
Change is slow.
Change is slow. You know who says that? People who don't want to change. Here's an example. There's a big party, right? And typically these parties happen in a church or some kind of formal thing. And there's a pastor that stands in front, and there's an aisleway in the middle, and there's a crowd over here, and a crowd over there, and so the guy is standing up at the front, waiting for the lady in the white dress. Hopefully she qualifies. White dress. Anyway, so the lady, they come up, and the man is there, and they start talking, and the pastor says, and then the man says, I do. And the lady said, and he says to the lady, do you? And she says, I do. And then what happens? They exchange rings, they kiss, and they are married. Was that a process? Sort of. But they are now what? They're now married, they're now one, right? That affirmation before, so the whole process happens. If one of them said no, would they be married? No, right? So when did the actual marriage happen? When they said yes. How long did that take? A few seconds. So when you really want to change, it'll take a long time. So I was this person, and now I'm Mr. Andre Cohen, married to Patricia Cohen. Before I was just Andre the dude, I do. Now I'm Andre the married guy, right? Dude, married. Real quick. Band-Aid, got a scar. You got a thing. It's time to take the Band-Aid off. I'm gonna go through a process and taking off this Band-Aid. No, that's not what do you do? Right? I've been waxed. The lady who tried to do it slowly, I wanted to strangle her. Because, so we can get that baby. You know what I'm talking about, get the hamburger meat right here. Okay. Right? So I'm like, do it quick. Right? Luckily, it's not a lot there. That's too personal. I'm getting way off. But you get what I'm saying, right? So this is the thing, right? Emancipation Proclamation. Dr. King is trying to get down, do his thing, and let's say, before the deal gets done. How long is that? Too long. Some kind of process should happen between then and in that 101 years, right? So Dr. King is frustrated because of their frustration. He's like, what are you talking about? There is no good time for change. There is no, we can go through your process, but I really know that if we want to get something done, we went to, when did we go to the moon? When did we say we were going to go on the moon? When was President Kennedy's first term? Was that 60, 61? So about 9 years, we did the impossible, but we can't do anything about racism. TV, for the most part, all things considered, is gone. But we can't do anything about sexism. So what else stood out for you in the letter? What stood out for you?
I think like a lot of the criticisms where, it's unwise, unkindly, in that like there's so much conflict. You should have waited for another time when there wouldn't be conflict. But Dr. King's saying that, like you can't change without conflict. There's never going to be.
There's never going to be a good time, but there's always going to be conflict, right? Conflict between the now and the possibilities, conflict between interests, conflict. So conflict is a natural part of it. Yeah. Other folks. What else? Yes.
Well, even just talking about like how many different organizations they've had, but to look at like, they had so many organizations, but like how much were they actually able to do?
Yeah, I mean the Southern Poverty Leadership Conference was not the first time people tried tackling this stuff, right?
And now that you mentioned this, out of like everyone involved, like Ku Klux Klan and the leaders, he was most disappointed with the white moderate.
And what was his, why was he disappointed in the white moderate? But what made him feel disappointed?
Yeah, they're just like neutral on it, kind of like something.
Yeah, they were neutral. What does neutrality say?
Choosing the side of the oppressor.
That you're choosing the side of the oppressor? I don't care. What does it say? Doesn't matter.
An indication of some cause too, because it's like, if people are in the issue and it's affecting them, they're not neutral. But if people are outside of it and like, oh yeah, I totally support what you're doing, but it doesn't affect them, then they're not, but I'm neutral. But
Yeah.
it's because they're outside of the issue. The minute it, comes into their living room, then they have a very strong opinion.
No, and you guys are absolutely right. Here's the thing that's most interesting. I'm going to show a video, not today, but another time. So in that video that I'll show you, there are 6 people who are just straight up like racist, bigoted, like, just poor choices, bad character, the whole 9, right? And so there are these people who there's 6 of them that are racist, and then there are 3 people who are very thoughtful and engaging in the world, and they challenge these people, they stand up for folks. But out of all of the folks that will be in the scenario, there will be 22 people who don't do anything. Now, there's 22 they have relationships with both of these, right? So when people who are able to stand up and be positive, when they're around the 22, what do they think? The positive. When I'm saying that something positive, and at least nobody says anything against me, then I assume what? That they agree with me. Now that principle for the 13 also applies to the -6. So people are being outrageous, they're being disrespectful, they're being, obnoxious, and you don't say anything. What do they think? You must also agree with what I'm doing. And so one of the things when he's upset about the white moderate, no, I know that he's saying to himself, I know the Klan. I know what to expect. I know how to treat them. I know how they're going to treat me. I know what to expect. But when people don't say anything and they see injustice or they see the problem isn't just that they don't say anything, but the -6s, the people who are doing bad stuff, think that these other people approve of it. And do you know what we call that? We call that the silent majority. Has anyone ever heard someone say, well, it's the silent majority, right? It's the people who won't speak up, but they keep telling me. Well, we can't have that because you're off purpose. Your behavior is not trying to lift up humanity. You're trying to destroy us, right? So part of that is this idea of what fed into that was this idea of the white racial frame. And so I don't blow all my time. We'll just go over this really quick. The words themselves are pretty self-explanatory, right? So it's a racial frame based on this concept of whiteness. And what's the first principle of whiteness? The first principle of whiteness is that all white people are the same. Is that true? No, right? So not ethnically, it's not true. Not if we look at class structure, that's not true, right? The second, that white is normal, right? White is normal. When we don't hear color mentioned, the default, obviously, supposedly, to looking at this white racial frame is what? Is white, right? So this idea of white has no culture, right? And you'll hear people say, "Well, I don't have a culture." Is that a true statement? That white has no culture? It's a trick question. Does white have a culture? It's a trick question.
White, but everybody would get.
So white itself does not have a culture, but the people who have been categorized as white do have a culture. So when people say, tell me about white culture, and people can't answer it, that's actually a good sign that they're on the path to enlightenment. Because white doesn't have a culture, but the people who have been labeled as white do, because white does not exist, right? This idea of whiteness does not exist. And number 4 is that whiteness never gets examined. Whiteness never gets examined. Right? We talk about the hair care products, right? For many of us, we don't have an early recollection, particularly those of us who are white or have been categorized as white, recollections of even having conversations about our racial thing with our family. Did your family ever, sit down and say, as white people, these are some things that we blah, 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 blah. Anybody ever had that conversation? Yeah, I would imagine probably not. I will say that as a black person, my parents did say, baby, these are some things that we do because of the color of your skin. Right, wrong, or otherwise, they were trying to give me the best that they had to help me operate in the world, that they knew that information might be helpful to me. So, so this sets the stage for this idea of the white racial frame, and it has some real consequences, right? So this idea of whiteness has some real consequences, and I want to show part of this video. Actually, let me see if I can cut to the part that I really want to deal with. Let's see. Okay, here we go. We'll start here. Okay. This is a documentary from MTV called White People. Have you guys seen that at all? White People? Okay. So MTV is a media company, so I don't always trust what they do. This particular piece is what I would call diversity light, meaning that they don't really deal with any heavy pieces, but I think it's important in terms of looking at this white racial frame and dealing with what Dr. King, the challenges he was dealing with, is an important thing to kind of talk about. All right, so we just show this this one particular section, and thank you so much for the light. Can we get that other one? Okay, yeah. So here we go. We turned it up. Make sure it's. We're going to turn it up, not turn up. I'm not going to turn it.
What do you think are the disadvantages of being white? Now, this is a really interesting question. I know there are some people in college thinking about, like, what is he asking? I mean, again, this is the conversation. She's in the back.
I would say there's no disadvantage to be white.
I don't know. I mean, it's like asking a rich person, like, tell me how hard your life is being rich.
This is a question many young white Americans are too embarrassed to discuss in public. But privately, it's a different story. In one study, nearly 50% of young white Americans say that today, discrimination against whites is as big a problem as discrimination against minorities.
Scholarships, definitely.
Yeah.
Scholarships, a lot
Yeah.
of scholarships. I mean, there's a lot of scholarships out there from people of different race.
It would ask you, like, literally on the scholarship search page, it's like, what's your race? And when I filled in that I was a white male, it said there are no scholarships available.
Hi, I'm Jose. Katie, right?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for having us. This is where you grew up?
Yeah, this is Scottsdale, Arizona.
Oh, wait, what's that?
That is
Oh,
my.
you're in the honor roll.
Well, I graduated as a high school scholar.
So where are you going to school right now?
I am going to Paradise Valley Community College.
How was the high school experience like for you?
I graduated top of my class in the top 10%. I graduated with 3.8 GPA. It's a lot higher than mine.
Okay, great.
Even with all that being done, I'm not able to have that education that I had hoped for.
So what was the plan?
The plan was Grand Canyon University. That's what my dream was.
So what happened when you applied?
I did get accepted.
Hey,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, that was really
Awesome.
cool.
Okay.
However, my biggest worry was the finances.
Yeah.
I just started noticing that there were all these scholarships for, for race.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, well, I don't qualify for any of those just because of the color of my skin.
How does that feel?
It kind of feels like I'm being discriminated against a little bit.
We told Katie when she was growing up, just work hard, get your grades, it'll get you far. But I think that now white folks aren't getting the same opportunities. It's kind of almost reverse discrimination in that way.
We have heard white students who say that white students are at a disadvantage when it comes to the college admission process, financial aid, scholarships, and this isn't fair. Talk to me about the facts. What are the actual statistics about scholarships that are available to white students in this country?
Available to white students, virtually all of them. I think it's something like 96% are actually available to white students. In terms of who gets the scholarships, white students are usually about 40% more likely than students of color to actually receive that type of aid.
40% more likely.
That's correct.
This surprised me. It turns out that even though 62% of undergraduate college students are white, they get 69% of private scholarships. On the other hand, minority students make up 38% of the undergraduate population, but get only 31% of private scholarships. So despite all we've heard about white students being at a disadvantage, they're actually disproportionately getting more scholarships. So what do I tell to white students?
Yes.
Well, I spoke to this young white student
Yes.
who feels that she is at a disadvantage.
You're not at a disadvantage. It's just, you're simply not. Everybody in the situation, especially as it pertains to paying for college, everybody is struggling right now.
She's not gonna want to hear that. So there's a lot of white students who feel that because they're white, that scholarships may not be available to them. But if you actually looked at the facts, If you are white, you are more than 40% likely to get a scholarship than if you're not white. So I'm curious, how do you then explain this feeling that white students feel that they're at a disadvantage?
Maybe because they just expected to get all the scholarships.
Any minority group, if they get a scholarship, I feel like straight white men feel like something is being taken away from them because they don't get it.
I've never had a problem finding a scholarship.
What do you say to somebody like that?
Google?
I'm Jose.
I'm Michael. Michael, nice to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, definitely, man.
So this real feeling that Katie and many other young white Americans have, right? That I can't get the financial aid or the scholarship money that I should be able to get or I deserve to get because I happen to be white. Would you agree with that? That that's a disadvantage?
Oh yeah, because two girls that we know, one white and one's Filipino. They both applied for like the same scholarship, and the Filipino one got it, and the other one didn't. The white girl didn't.
Even though she wasn't as qualified.
I think that there might be other factors involved too. I mean, maybe she's Filipino, but that might not be why she got in. The reasons that people get scholarships are not always clear. And I think if you wanted to inquire why, you would have to ask people who gave the scholarship.
I think this is where I have to kind of give you some facts, right? Around 21 million people apply for financial aid. About 76% of all institutional merit-based scholarships go to white students. And if you're a white student, you're 40% more likely to get a scholarship than if you were a person of color. Are you surprised by the numbers?
Yes, I'm very surprised. Because the way Katie was making it sound like, oh, I'm being penalized, and they made me think like, oh, maybe like they are kind of directly aiming it towards minorities, but with those numbers, obviously they're not. Okay, now I'm like the victim.
Why did you say that, by the way? You said that, like you made me out to be a victim.
I mean, I know I don't want to come off like that to you guys.
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's fine.
No, I know. I mean, so, like, 'cause, you were like, you seemed to be understanding, but then when the numbers came around, when the numbers, it did kind of change my view a little bit. I feel like you guys are attacking me now.
I know where.
Opinions are opinions.
I'm kind
I'm
of
not
like,
saying
I
like.
put myself in both sides' shoes, I guess you could say.
Katie's feeling about this is an unfair system and now I'm at a disadvantage, that is a feeling that a lot of young white people that I talk to feel.
Most people feel like this because me, even with all the races I am, I wasn't able to get a scholarship. So it's not just you being white. It's just it is hard to get scholarships now.
Katie, how are you reacting to what your friends just said?
Maybe it's just my side of it. Maybe it's all that I've seen, being born and raised here, having predominantly associated myself with generally Caucasian people. My view is what it is because of my experiences, and maybe I am wrong.
But here's the point that I want to make. This is what I really want to make sure that you understand. You are not the only person who feels this way. When you hear that Christopher, who's of mixed race and is a minority, has a hard time getting a scholarship, like what did you think of that?
It really opened my eyes to see that there is a challenge, no matter who you are or where you come from. It's hard, yeah, and my initial concern was just feeling excluded from certain things, just because no one likes to feel excluded, especially for the color of their skin.
So talk to me about the next steps for going to school that you want to go to.
I'm gonna keep looking for scholarships and first off apply. Hopefully I can find something or find a bunch.
How badly do you want it?
I'll do what it takes.
You're gonna do what it takes.
Lights.
How do you feel talking with a person of a different race? Yes.
So before, we may have more time for the other stuff, but what did you, what came up for you as you're listening to that snippet? Yeah.
Okay, so I was being kind of nasty over here just to myself.
Okay.
So,
She said she was being nasty over here to the person on the video, catty kind of thing.
yeah,
kinda
just because,
picky.
and I think it's because I'm afraid that I've come off like that ever in my life. Like I really am afraid that I'll say or feel. I don't want to come off like she came off, like saying like, now I feel like a victim because I'm not actually discriminated against like I thought I was. And I don't want to ever portray myself like a victim when I know that I'm not.
Mhm.
And like, I'm like consciously trying not to have those kind of attitudes about my skin and about like reverse discrimination, which doesn't exist. And like I'm retraining myself or trying to, but I really don't want to come off like that. And so when I see it, it scares me.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I got nasty.
Okay. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I thought it was a really good point. Like one of the students shared that maybe the feeling, like it's hard for everybody, and so maybe the feeling now is that like the people who have typically had the most power, like rich white males, and now it feels like they're having something taken away from them since it's not easy, but like for a minority, for a person that's a minority, it's like they've always had to work to earn like a scholarship or whatever it is, or whatever it was, and now it's a scholarship. So now it's nothing new, but it's not being handed to someone, so it feels like it's being taken away. But it's hard for everybody. I thought that was a good point.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing, so I don't give MTV a lot of credit, but I did give credit in particular this kind of piece because I liked the balance of the stuff. So it wasn't, she was hearing from her friends who she trusts and love, and they were actually giving her some real things to think about, right? Not necessarily judging her or trying to condemn her, but just giving her some things to think about. And I think she genuinely was able to hear them from her friends more so than she was from the documentary too. So I give them some credit on that, right? Other things that struck you, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I've seen this before, and the first time I watched it, I'm not gonna lie, I was like when she was like moving, I was like, girl, bye, like what are you talking about? Like stop. And then when he hit her with the facts, and I was like, yeah, like hit her with the facts. And then I don't know, like, and then I kind of thought about it and stuff like that, and I was like, I didn't really see where she was coming from. I felt like, to me, it's kind of like she's speaking from an individual's perspective, and she was kind of making it as a general statement. And I was kind of like, well, that's not true, because even me, like, coming to college, I knew what I had to go through to get scholarships and all that stuff. And you know what I mean? I was like, that's not really, like, I didn't really understand where she was coming from. Like, I saw her point, but I didn't get it, because I was like, that's not true at all. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. But
Who was supportive in her down in the dumps kind of, was that? Her parents. Who do you think she got it from? Probably from her parents. There's a worldview that's happening in that household that says we're under attack. Those, more than likely, right? The same kinds of thought, people will say, well, they're coming in and taking our jobs. Okay, you quit your job and take the job they're taking. You didn't want that job, so if they're doing stuff, yes, ma'am.
I've definitely been like guilty of saying like, okay, if we made less money or whatever, like I'd get more money for college. So, but like all those different things, and like I don't know, a couple weeks ago you were talking about how you were explaining like everything in the video of like the percentages of everything and how like there actually is like we still have a higher advantage, even though it seems like the effects is like going to all like the racial minorities. But just like seeing what other people are able to like talk about and how they're like defensive of like, no, like I'm the one that, is at a disadvantage, but it's really looking at the big picture of like everything and like, because I don't want to be caught saying that even though like I am all the time. Like
okay, well, they get more money out for college and like I don't, but.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
No, I was think it's interesting too. I think it's like goes back to somewhat human nature too. Like we always want to put the blame on someone else. Like I didn't score on that test because the professor didn't get stuff. This, because I didn't have, people in my group probably didn't contribute. And so like, then it becomes when she has no excuse why she's not in college. Then she feels like a failure because she's going to community college and so then it's just she didn't try hard enough, which is true. But I think in every situation, I think there's always a temptation to be like, well, it's not me, it's them.
So I got a text today, right? So, we talked a little bit, not a text, it was on Facebook. Because I want to get this right. I was on Facebook and it was a congratulations. And I found the congratulations somewhat troubling. Come on. Facebook. Here it is. Oh, this is the next one. There's congratulations, right? So we talk about this idea of if I work hard enough, I'll get, and all sorts of stuff, right? That's what we talk about, right? And that's what we're taught in schools. And if you do well enough, so forth and so on, right? So school is so maybe I didn't get it because I didn't work hard enough, or maybe I didn't get it because my school sucked. Congratulations. St. Louis Public Schools accredited for the first time in 15 years. You know what accreditation is, right? If Bethel wasn't accredited by an outside agency that said all their curriculum is good, it'll get you a good job, blah, 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 would you come to this school? Would you pay as much as you pay? No. We have a public school district that's been operating for over 15 years without accreditation, which means what about the degree? It could be perceived that it means nothing. So I also find it interesting. Let me get you just a second. The woman said, I got a 3.8 GPA, and she was proud of that. Is that a good GPA? Yes, it's a good GPA. Is it competitive? Who are you gonna pick? I mean, all things considered, right? So it is a good GPA, but it ain't competitive. Right? So part of our problem was telling the truth, but we'll get back to you in just a second. Go ahead.
And that's one thing too, is that, just like on a side note on that, I feel like schools nowadays, they look more at like activities. And students don't realize that, and they have like a 3.8, and they're like, and I didn't have that GPA, but I got into some good schools just because I had a lot of activities and like volunteer and all these like things that were more important to them.
Well, because university is looking for well-rounded students, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm not well-rounded, and maybe I do have, pretty good, grades, could that actually be a contributing factor to me not getting into where I want to get? Yes.
Like, even though Ryan said that, there's still like things online for colleges. You like plug in your GPA and your ACT score. It's like, okay, this is how much you're gonna get. And so that it's not looking at like your racial background or anything like that. It's like objective of like, okay, this is what you've got. But it's still like, hey, I could be a really good, well-rounded student, but they're not taking any of that into consideration. Like, you could have had a bad day of like test taking that, that day, and your score is lower than someone else's.
Yeah. No, you're right. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I feel like there's kind of like there's just like misinformation out there, and some people just like kind of like believe it. Like I know, one of my high school buddies that I've been friends with since 7th grade, he's Korean, he's adopted. He always like kind of jokes about how he gets money because he's Korean. And like, I don't think he realizes how like other people could take that. Like they can take that as serious, and then like, and so like, then they just be like, oh, he gets this and he goes here and that. And so I feel like there's just kind of like misinformation that people don't like understand. Like they look at the 3.8 and be like, oh, I did everything right. Like so something else is wrong.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I mean, even if it was true that minority students would receive more money, it's because they're starting out from a lower platform anyway. Like we learned in the housing thing, like Black families with the same income or don't have as much wealth as white families. So they wouldn't be able to pay as much as a white family anyway, even if they were starting out like same level. And she has the advantage just by being white already.
Yeah. But I want to call just I want a good train of thought. I was on the train, right? But I want you to be cautious because there are Black people who can't afford it.
No, I know.
Even if they happen to get scholarships, right?
It's like same.
But when it's same, right? So same income, same wealth. When it's the same income and different wealth, that's where you get. But when it's same wealth, same income, that's where you have same results. When we have different wealth, which is net worth, right? When you have different net worth, that's when it gets lopsided. So I just want to make that real crystal clear, right? So same. 3 sames. Same. But if one of those is different, then you get what is known as a disparity, right? But this is the thing that I think is really, really interesting as we talk about this idea of this white racial frame. What started to happen in that conversation? Given what we've kind of talked about in the white racial frame, because she made a lot of assumptions based on this white racial frame. And as they were talking through her experience, what did she start to notice? Given these things that we've kind of talked about.
That she's just operating out of her own experience. And you can't look at a situation only operating out of her own experience.
So she was operating out of her own experience. What else? She was doing all the right things. She had a good thing and blah, blah, blah. And so I should be treated the same as all other white people because I know other white people who did all the right things and they got ahead. So I should be getting ahead too. That what I'm doing is just normal. Everything that I've done, everything right, and it's done normal. But here's the biggest thing that started happening for her. She had to start examining whiteness. When whiteness does not get examined, then these other things hold pretty true. But when she had to stop and think, well, maybe I didn't get it, not because I'm white, but because I just got a 3.8 and they were looking for 4.0s. Maybe there are other things that contribute to that when I start thinking about what privileges, now I'm being denied these privileges, and now it feels like it's reverse discrimination and blah, blah, blah. But once she started thinking about examining her whiteness, then these other things started to kind of unravel, and she could get to something that we know is probably more truthful than the stories that she's making up in her head. Right? Yes, ma'am.
Like one of the girls at Ancestors was like, if you like Google different scholarships, you're gonna find more. And my dad was like, when you're filling out scholarships, this when I was a senior, my dad was like, well, Olivia, if you filled one out like literally like every single day, you could get like your whole college basically paid for. And I know people that have done that. So it's like we do have the opportunity, but it's like what effort are we put forth to like actually succeed and do those things. Like we don't realize, like you'd be like, okay, well, why did that person get the scholarship? But you don't like realize, like, maybe they just happened to be the one, but then maybe they put in all this effort to like get that scholarship and like have those things.
Yeah, that it may be the truth that's outside of us, right? We don't like being held accountable to things, and we also don't, we like to blame things as opposed to taking responsibility for things, all right? So I also handed out the racial frame handout. Did folks read through that? Yeah. Can we read the first thing about the racial frame? Go ahead. Anyone, can you read that? Number 1.
The development of a positive sense of racial ethnic identity, not based on certain superiority or inferiority, is an important aspect.
Yeah. If I try to base my existence on someone else, right? So I am superior, therefore those people are inferior, or I am inferior, therefore those people are superior. If you try to base your self-esteem on someone else's existence, how's that going to work out? Not too well, right? So you'll always be doubting. Number 2.
Racial and ethnic identity formation is a developmental process which unfolds in rather predictable ways.
Yeah. So when we talk about developmental process, what do we mean by that? It happens over time, and it happens with a certain kind of pedagogy. So you learn your racial or ethnic identity. Isn't that something that's in your genes, right? Number 3.
For young people of color, the process often begins to unfold in adolescence.
All right. Why is that? Why might that be the case that it unfolds in adolescence? Yes.
Their experiences, they just have to experience it when they're younger.
All right. So they have to experience it when they're younger. I saw another hand. They're starting to get into the world, right? The world is starting to give them what the world thinks of them, and so that they start understanding that relatively early. Number 5. Oh, we have number 4? I'm sorry, 4.
For whites living in predominantly white areas, the process may not begin until much later.
Yeah. Obviously, why? They don't have any cognitive dissonance, right? They don't have to, right? And kids of color, cognitive dissonance comes earlier because this is what we do in our house, and now you're outside the house, and the world is saying this is what you're supposed to be like. Right? Number 5.
For many white adults have given little consideration to the meaning of their own racial ownership.
Yeah. Why do we have, lefse? Anybody have lefse? Krumkaka? Yeah, isn't that awesome? What's there's a little lace cake cookie. You dip it's like funnel cake, but you dip the hot iron in the batter, and you put the batter in it's Norwegian or Swedish. What's that? You guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Right, love those things. You have all the time at Christmas, right? And I'm not even like, but I just love it, right? So I have lots of Lutheran friends, and that's how I get to all this stuff. Yeah, so most white people don't, particularly as adults, don't even think about this idea. And again, you'll hear them say when they go to think about it, we're all the same. What do you mean we're all the same? And then you'll hear them say, well, it's just normal. I'm just being normal, right? No, we don't have, I'm American. I don't have it. No, you do. You do. You came from a piece of land somewhere, right? And there will come a time, and we're going to repeat this a bazillion times, there will come a time when we can all say that we are genuinely, without any hyphens, American. That time is not now, yet. Number 6, yes.
How long do you think it takes?
Well, we went to the moon. We got rid of TV. People get married. How long do you think it takes? Long enough for people to make up their mind. Right? So when we decide that we're done doing, when you get saved, you turn your life over to Christ. Was it a big, long process? Or did you say, you know what, I'm done. Here it is. Right? So yeah, no, I think whenever we decide that we want to stop making money off of prisons and we want to get people into colleges and create jobs and have people have happy lives and, not try to convince people that they need two household incomes to make a living for themselves. Yeah, I think we'll get there. So there's that. Okay, we're at number 6, 5, 6. What's number 6?
The fact that adolescents of color and white youth, as well as white educators, are on very different developmental timelines in terms of racial identity development is a potential source of misunderstanding and conflict.
So one of the things that, are people familiar with the grieving process? Familiar with that? There's 5 stages, 5 or 7. So there's normal behavior, and there's normal behavior, right? I'm sorry. So what are some of the parts of the grieving process? So denial, yep. So there's denial, anger, usually it's anger, denial, depression, what comes next? Bargaining, this right here. Acceptance. Okay. So part of what's happening is, and actually, denial and anger are opposite. Depression is here. Okay. So Black Lives Matter. People say that, and then other groups of people have started saying what? All lives matter, right? Why has that come up? Because we're in the grieving process, right? So Black people are mad. We're tired of this. We're not going to take it no more. We're going out to the streets, right? What if white people said about some of those problems? Not you guys, but like other people. It's not so bad. It's blah, 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 right? Why don't they just get over it? Blah, blah, blah. So denial. So we have people who are mad and people who are in denial. And then we have this idea of this depression. There's something here. Why am I feeling that there's something here? I can't remember. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there's 1. There's 5. At any rate. He's got the chart. The order is.
This is the healing process, yeah.
Yeah, so it's.
I've got awareness of injustice,
yeah.
Anger, expression, grief and loss, expression, forgiveness and letting go.
Okay, cool. That works for what we're trying to get to, right? Here's my point. part of the problem is that particularly people of color they see this and they know that it's not true. But when white people experience this and they find out that it's not true, they have a different level of the grieving process, right? So a lot of time is spent in denial. And then folks end up kind of in this depressive state where they're like, how come I'm not getting ahead? I'm not, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, but I'm not getting that job. I'm not doing this kind of stuff and blah, 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 blah. And then they start kind of making a deal with themselves, right? But I just wanted to share that. I'll have that part of my lecture more defined next Monday, all right? So I can clear that up for you. But the idea is that we start this grieving process when we start to examine what it means to be us, or what we've been told or not told, or taught or not taught, and so forth and so on. And so we have to go through this grieving process, which for someone like me, oftentimes when I was younger, it would annoy me because I'm like, white people are just doing this? I've been doing this all my life. I've been learning about da 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 da. But as I've gotten older and hopefully a little bit wiser, what I've understood is that we're all on this continuum. And at some point, we need to get to acceptance and healing so that we're not mourning the loss of our humanity. And when we talk about the grieving process, that's really what we're grieving, the loss of our humanity. Because again, whiteness is not a thing, it's not a place, but it becomes the big story that gets overlaid over all sorts of things. There's that. Those were my notes for today. Can we read number 7?
Those who feel affirmed in their own identity are more likely to be respectful of others' self-definition.
Yeah. So if I'm secure in myself, if somebody else gets a scholarship, what do I say?
Congratulations.
Congratulations. I'm glad you got it. Way to go. Why? Why am I able to say that? Because what?
Because you're okay with it.
Because I'm okay with it, right? And it's not a threat to me. I'm glad that you because that's not a threat to me. All right. So we will not be meeting on Wednesday because that's advising day, but I will see you the following Monday. And I haven't gotten any emails from anyone who needs help with their.
I'm pretty sure I sent you.
Okay. Okay.
Did you send it to the new one?
I sent it to the one
On the back, okay. So, we'll talk. Okay.
Is this someone's water?
Yeah, here. Yeah, she'll.
Yeah. I see her walking down. I started mine. You like I don't say it, but like when I first started, it's supposed to be from like 3 to 6, but it started till 3:30. The kids didn't come, and like it was like a so the kids can go in if they want. They all left like at 5.
Okay.
So the times were shortened. And I talked to the person and he said he can get me somewhere else because they feel like they can't get home.
Yeah, so what I would do is ask them if there's some prep work you can do before the kids come and after the kids, and we'll count that time.
Okay, yeah, because like I'm talking to him and he's trying to see if I can go to a different side because it's like it's more of helping kids after school than after school.
Yeah, so right now the Boys and Girls Club is more of a drop-in.
Yeah, it's like if they want, then we have like The only reason there was a lot of kids was because we would have played before they did homework, so everybody wanted to be there, and then when we were actually doing work, they would ask them what they wanted. So.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of a way to get around that, because kids do that all the time. Like, I want to play.
Well, that's
but I
why you
don't
don't play first, but the girl did that, and I was just wanting to tell them that is not a good idea, but you need to check.
Did she, yeah.
It's her, she just graduated from college, it's her first, like.
So now you gotta deal with a movie.
Well, I'm gonna change to a different program now.
Okay,
That has more hours,
okay,
but.
all right. Yes, sir.
The Ms. Bogenholm, I wasn't able to talk with the superintendent. He had to leave right after his talk, so he was just talking to the admin program in school.
Can you share some of that next week?
I mean, admin.
Yeah, what you learned or what they were talking about?
Oh, well, the superintendent he just introduced himself to Abbott basically, so it wasn't anything. I mean, he's a new superintendent, he got hired in August, and so he just kind of was making the rounds. But just kind of talked about his life. But yeah, Ms. Bogenholm, she asked me to invite you if you want to like ever come talk to Abbott, because they'd love to have you.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, if you ever need her, if you want me to, I could send you her
yeah,
email.
send me her,
Okay.
send me her email.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
And I'll make that happen for Thompson.
Okay. Yeah,
Because we need to build those bridges between us.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And I told them what you were saying, that like you didn't get the memo that you're supposed to connect with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Oh, that's fine. And so I was
Yeah,
like,
and
yeah, I mean, you didn't, no one told them that, so.
Yeah, and I just left a message for